evening and welcome to the 29th District Senate primary debate. The reason we're here tonight is so that you can hear from three candidates, Atif Carney, Jeremy McPike, and Delegate Michael Futrell, that are looking to earn your vote to become the Democratic candidate for the 29th. The seat is held by longtime incumbent Senator Chuck Colgan, who will be retiring this year. One of these three candidates will be facing current Manassas Mayor Hal Parrish in November, who has been named the Republican candidate for the race. Tonight will be an exciting evening full of tough questions and important answers. This district seat is considered one of the most important of the 2015 election cycle, and we hope that the candidates can shed some light as to why they're the one for the job to represent the constituents of the 29th. My name is Stephanie Tipple, and I am the Prince William Regional Editor for Potomac Local. Next to me are my two esteemed panelists, Bob Gibson, Executive Director at the Sorensen Institute for Political Leadership at the University of Virginia, and Stephen Farnsworth, Professor at the University of Mary Washington, and the Director for the Center for Leadership and Media Studies. We will be moderating the debate tonight, and Prince William County Democratic Party Chairman Harry Wiggins will be keeping track of time up front. I want to give a big thank you to Mr. Bill Golden for filming the debate this evening and making it accessible via live stream to our audience at home on his website, billfordogcatcher.com. We also want to thank Harry Wiggins for helping us to secure the auditorium for this evening. Here are the rules for tonight's debate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening and closing remarks. Harry Wiggins will hold up a yellow paper up front for 1 minute and a red paper for 30 seconds. After each candidate has made their opening remarks, myself and our two panelists will ask questions of the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond per question. Then, once each candidate has finished their responses, they will each get a 1-minute rebuttal. The order for the statements and answers was chosen at random, and Mr. Carney will start the opening and closing remarks, followed by Mr. Futrell and Mr. McPike. Before we begin with tonight's questions, we're going to read short bios about each of the candidates.
Thank you very much. Our first candidate is Michael Futrell. Delegate Michael Futrell has been serving in the Virginia House of Delegates for Prince William and Stafford counties since 2013. Futrell began his career as a teacher, teaching math and science. He and his wife, Dr. Bernadette Futrell, founded the Make the Future Foundation in 2010. The organization works to serve young people in Northern Virginia. Additionally, Futrell is an active member of the Prince William County Chamber of Commerce. Futrell, his wife, and 2 children reside in Woodbridge.
Atif Carney moved to the United States from Pakistan when he was only 10 years old. He served as a United States Marine for 8 years, including a tour in Iraq during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Back in 2013, he ran against Delegate Bob Marshall, where he came within 500 votes of winning the seat. Carney was appointed to the Small Business Commission by Governor McAuliffe in 2014. Currently, he is working as a math teacher at Bevel Middle School in Dale City. Carney lives in Manassas with his wife and their 2 sons.
Jeremy McPike is a lifelong resident of Prince William County. For the last 16 years, he has served as a volunteer firefighter and EMT with the Dale City Volunteer Fire Department. He has served as president of the department's foundation. McPike has worked for the city of Alexandria for 15 years as the director of general services. He ran against Scott Lingamfalter in a close race for the 31st House District in 2013. McPike and his wife Sharon live in Dale City with their 3 daughters.
Now we'll open up with opening remarks from the candidates. Mr. Carney, you were selected first to make your opening statement.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you everyone for coming here tonight. I want to thank Potomac Local and the panelists for arranging this, and thank you for my fellow folks who are running against me, my opponents. This is a very important election. Stephanie had mentioned that I came here at the age of 10 from Pakistan. My family migrated here when I was 10. I did not speak any English. Well, I knew the words like candy and cake and stuff like that. Having said that, 30 years later, almost 30 years later, as I stand in front of you contesting for Virginia State Senate, and not for any state Senate seat, but a seat that has been held by Senator Colgan for 40 years, one of the most respected members of the General Assembly in the history of the Commonwealth, it's a very humbling experience for me to be part of that conversation and considered one of the serious contenders to vacate this, to fill this seat. The reason I'm in this situation is because of a good public education. Because of a good public education, I was able to go to the United States Marines. I was able to go to George Washington University, finish my undergraduate there, and then finish my master's at George Mason University, get my teaching credentials, and become a teacher of excellence. I've been teaching in Prince William County Public Schools for 6 years, and what is heartbreaking for me is that since I have been teaching, I have seen that when Governor McDonald took over in 2009, since then, in the last 6 years, we're spending $1,000 less per child in the Commonwealth, and that is unacceptable. As funding has gone down, classroom sizes have gone way out of control, and that's one of the main reasons I got involved, because we really need to invest in our future, we need to invest in our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Mr. Futrell, you're next.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank Potomac Local for putting this all on. Any opportunity for us to come together and discuss the vision of how we move Virginia forward is always a welcome opportunity. You know, it's been truly a privilege and an honor to serve in the Virginia House of Delegates. You know, I remember back when I was first trying to make the decision whether I was going to run or not, Harry Wiggins and Paul Nichols had sat down with me and we were talking, and someone said, well, you know, Michael, you are a deacon at a very large, active, supporting church. You're a former teacher. Your nonprofit organization has reestablished the Dumfries Boys and Girls Club. You are a mentor at the juvenile detention centers. You've taken custody and raised your younger brother. You have a very supportive wife in Dr. Futrell, and you have a son that smiles at every single picture. So if you don't run for office, who's going to? You know, but after that conversation, we were able to come together and make history. You know, here's where we are. Let's talk about what's at stake. The balance of power in the Virginia State Senate sits before us. We currently sit at a crossroad where we have to make the decision of what we want to look like. Do we want to look like Louisiana with its out-of-control budgets, or Tennessee and Mississippi who spend more time, effort, and capital in arresting and putting their constituents in jail as opposed to investing into an education system so therefore they could reduce recidivism? You know, we have to make a decision of what it is that we want to be able to accomplish. I sit here with two great young men who, one of them has supported our community, one of them has continued to fight and make policy, and the other one has continued to fight in our education system. But we are currently running for a position to make sound public policy, and I'm the only one that has done that. So I look forward to our success, and I look forward to what we'll be able to accomplish. I look forward to their success as we move forward together.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell. And last but not least, Mr. McPike.
Thank you. First, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank Senator Colgan for his 40 years of service to our community. Thank you to Potomac Local for helping to host this important debate, and to Bob Gibson and Steve Farnsworth for moderating tonight. Thank you all for being in attendance, as well as those watching online. Special thanks to my friends and family, as well as my wife Sharon, for your support. You know, tonight you're going to hear a lot about the issues that are important to our community. And this debate, frankly, is not about the progressive values we hold. This is about a primary to select someone who can go to Richmond and make real change and innovation for Prince William, Manassas, and Manassas Park. We cannot afford any delay in posturing or in inaction. We need to make sure we dig in and reform our SOLs, that we get the resources for our schools. And on our transportation, to make sure that we fight for our key improvements to our transportation network for Route 28, Route 1, extending Metro and VRE. And on Medicaid, it's critical we extend Medicaid to make sure we get our tax dollars working back for us and start saving lives. In over a lifetime here and over the last 15 years in local government, I've shown consistent ability to deliver the results that we need here and to innovate. This is crucial for an area in the community I grew up in, where I'm raising my family and where I've been a firefighter and EMT for the last 16 years. And that's why some of our most effective democratic leaders, in fact, right here, most importantly, right here in our community, support my campaign, including our local state senators, George Barker and Toddy Puller, as well as Supervisors John Jenkins, former board chair Kathleen Seatfeld, and former delegate Dave Brickley. Our area Democratic leaders know that I can deliver on the key initiatives that are important to our community. Now, we have our challenges in our area, and I know we've got a better future. And with that, I promise you I will work to build that future with you, and each and every day work for you and with you each step of the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your opening remarks. Now we're going to move to our first question tonight, which is about immigration. President Obama continues to push for immigration reform. According to WVTF Radio, almost 1 of every 4 residents in Northern Virginia is foreign-born. Almost half of them have a bachelor's degree, and more than half are citizens. This contrasts with the national narrative on immigration, where according to the Migration Policy Institute, only 28% of immigrants have a bachelor's degree, and only 47% are naturalized citizens. What are your thoughts on immigration as it relates to state policy, and how do you feel about potentially representing such a diverse group of residents? We're going to start off with Carney.
Being that I am an immigrant myself, it can be difficult for immigrants to assimilate into society, but this is what our American system is about. It's about a good public education, which I was able to take advantage of and be in a situation here like I am today. And we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate our cultural differences, our ethnic backgrounds, and we need to create a welcoming culture for everyone. It doesn't matter if folks came here recently. It doesn't matter if they've been here for generations. We are built, a nation built on the shoulders of folks who came from somewhere else. Virginia used to lead the way in education. Right now I'm telling you that we're not doing that. We are a very diverse region, and we need to focus on revamping our education system, and we need to focus on making sure that we're helping everyone. Public education is a right for everyone, not a privilege for a select few. And right now, Republicans are they've made a mockery of our immigration system, both at the state and the federal level, and the federal government needs to really focus on comprehensive immigration reforms. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next up is Mr. Futrell.
Well, thank you very much. You know, it's kind of ironic we stand up here to talk about immigration with the last names Futrell, McPike, and Carney. But you know, it shows how far that we go back and how big of an issue that this is. I want to be perfectly clear. I support streamlining the process completely and wholeheartedly. But also, I want to understand that this is at a federal level, but at a state level, there are things that we can do. And that's why I was very happy to champion House Bill 88 to try to grant in-state tuition for these students and give them an opportunity. You know, there are people, and many of us, as we go door to door, can tell you so many different stories. And there are so many people that they are trying to do right, but the system has failed them. And with that, and when you hear these conversations, your job is to figure out what are solutions that we can do to help. And that's why I was so happy to be able to be in a position to fight for that in-state tuition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell. Mr. McPike.
Thank you. I support the Dreamers Act. I think it's one of the fundamental things for our kids who have grown up here, have gone to public schools here, the kids in our neighborhoods, and the kids that go to my kids' schools, and the schools I went to, have an opportunity to succeed. And that means getting a higher education, whether it's here at Northern Virginia Community College or George Mason or throughout this great Commonwealth. We've got some great assets, and these kids deserve an opportunity to succeed. This is fundamental. In fact, this is also why I support SOL reform. Right now, it doesn't take into account for kids that have challenges as they're starting to learn our language. In fact, this is critical that we build the structures that are critical to their success, including the expansion of pre-K education here. This is fundamental that we do this to give early access to kids from disadvantaged backgrounds or those struggling to learn English for the first time. This is one of the fundamental things we do, and frankly, what it leads us to is to build a diversified economy with a diversified workforce. That's what I'll be focusing on as your state senator.
Thank you, Mr. McPike. We're going to open it up for a 1-minute rebuttal from each of the candidates. Mr. Carney.
In addition to, because I'm a big advocate for public education and I teach at Bevel Middle School, which is very diverse, and the gentlemen who mentioned about public education, that is very important. We also need to focus on small businesses. I was appointed to the Small Business Commission by Governor McAuliffe because I'm close to a lot of small business owners, which are owned, a lot of them in our region are owned by different immigrants, and we need to support our small businesses because we need to strengthen our business climate. And one of the things that I know we'll get later on into is really improving our infrastructure. So that's one of the things we also need to focus on.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Mr. Futrell, your rebuttal.
Well, I think that we're all pretty much on the same page here. I don't think there was really any question as to where we stood as we're in this Democratic primary. But here's the thing, and it comes down to what are our solutions, what are the things that we're fighting for. Just like I had an opportunity to present a bill when we talk about our students who are English second language. We have the WIDA testing. In 11th grade, the reading SOLs, they have to take the reading SOLs as well as the WIDA test. I put in a bill that would give us the opportunity to only have to test the kids on one of these issues, which with the Republican-held House, they decided to shoot down. Again, the thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to make this an economy that can boom from everyone. And as you heard each person not only talk about business, but talk about education, the thing that we realize is it all ties together. We want to give people the opportunity to find that success that they came here in search of. People just want to be productive members of our society, and it's up to us to continue to fight with them so therefore we can see these same successes together.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell. Mr. McPike.
As I stated in my opening, this primary is about who can provide the most innovative and effective results in Richmond. This is one of the key things we need to connect the dots all the way from pre-K education all the way through to our public universities. I'm committed fully to making sure we build those advantages and opportunities and to make sure we continue to build a world-class economy here that with those that can compete, not just nationally, but globally. That's a key to diversifying our economy moving forward. Thank you.
The next question concerns transportation, and it goes first to Mr. Futrell. At the height of the Bi-County Parkway debate, then Transportation Secretary Sean Connaughton said that Dulles Airport was one of the most prominent ports of commerce, and the Parkway would be allowing trucks to move more easily goods from the airports to other parts of the state and the country. Please give us your views on the Bi-County Parkway. Should it proceed? Should it be adjusted? And what impact do you imagine it have? What alternatives might be more appealing?
Question for you. How many people in here are sick and tired of being stuck in traffic? I think we can all pretty much agree on that, correct? So here's the thing. We have to start finding innovative ideas. And at times, we have to decide on what is the best option for us. Not necessarily it's the best solution that we would like to see, but it's the best option that we have in front of us. One of the things that I've done in the General Assembly, when I looked at my district, I have a district which is Stafford County and Woodbridge. With Stafford and Woodbridge, I didn't even have a bus system that connected the two districts together, which is why I put in a bill that would expand the bus services that gives us the opportunity to connect the two. Because the thing that we all understand is when we start talking transportation as a whole, whether we're talking the Bi-County Parkway, the Tri-County Parkway, or Route 1, we understand that not only is this going to impact our day-to-day lives and our quality of life, but it impacts our economy and it impacts the opportunity for us to bring additional businesses down, so therefore our economy can continue to boom and grow.
This is a key issue in transportation and moving people, goods, and services to the area that they're needed. We certainly need to figure out a way and pathway to make sure we can move traffic to Dulles and Herndon and where some of our jobs are here. But frankly, you know, I'm the only one on the stage who commutes over an hour each way to and from work. It's something I feel very real every day. In fact, if you're like me, you usually have a little anxiety about coming home with the sea of brake lights in front of you. In fact, you know, it's one of those things where you hope for the day where you've got a clear path and all of a sudden it opens up and you're able to get home a half hour earlier. Isn't that like winning the lottery? You actually can make some dinner and have some time. For me, it's with my girls and spend a little extra time. You know, it's our goal, frankly, and fundamental that we figure out ways to improve Route 28, improve Route 1, extend Metro, and extend VRE here to this area. It's fundamental in order, hopefully, maybe we'll get some of those additional sort of lottery days on the highways and have a better quality of life. That's fundamental to what we can do here together. Thank you.
I live right off of 28, which is a parking lot every single day of the week, including weekends as well. I take my kids to Pennington, which is in Manassas, and I have to drive all the way to Dale City. My wife is actually a commuter. She goes into D.C. a little bit further than you know, a lot of other people, and she takes the VRE in. What we need to do is that right now there's a battle between Northern Virginia and the rest of Virginia on how funds are appropriated, and those decisions are made in the state Senate. And we are not getting our fair share. First of all, we need to get our fair share back from the taxes that we put in so we can invest in different projects. We need to focus on mass transit. We need to focus on folks so they can telework. The bottom line is folks are spending a lot of time stuck in traffic. And if I'm your state senator, I will fight to make sure that you're spending more time at home with your families and less time fighting traffic.
1 minute rebuttals.
It's great that we're given the opportunity to talk about ideas, but I want to talk about some of the solutions that I continue to try to create as your delegate. Just like I put in a bill that would have given us the opportunity to potentially bring the Metro down to Woodbridge without using our tax-paid funds. You know, these are the things that we need to do. Again, as we start talking about our structure, and as I listen to Atif talk about being stuck in traffic on 28, everywhere is a parking lot. Whether you're on Route 1, whether you're on 28, whether you're on 95. Everywhere is a parking lot, but we have to come up with innovative ways and ideas of doing things. We can't use 19th and 20th century thinking and think we're going to see 21st century successes.
I was only one on this stage to testify before the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority just a few months ago and testifying the importance of investment in our community. Because I've seen, like you, the amount of dollars that frankly have gone to Loudoun, to newer communities, frankly, that we've been sitting here for decades. Meanwhile, the dollars have been going elsewhere. This is something that fundamentally has got to change. And frankly, we also need additional scrutiny and thoughtfulness when we enter into long-term deals to fix our transportation solutions that frankly mortgage our land in areas we pay taxes for things like express lanes and hot lanes and other things. We've got to have more, deeper thought in it, and it's got to be a fair and open, transparent process. As your state senator, I'll work to make sure we do that.
One of the other things that we could do, or we need to do, is we need to invest in our school systems. We need to invest in the math and sciences. If we have more students coming out who are highly trained in math and sciences, we can attract a lot more technology firms to locate down here in Prince William. There's no reason that, you know, they should be elsewhere in other parts of Virginia. We have a lot of potential in this region. We have a lot of real estate that we can fill up with technology jobs, but we have to do that by investing in our kids and focusing on the math and sciences. We need to update our SOL curriculum. I'll tell you, as a math teacher right now, is completely outdated. A lot of the information that we teach needs to be purged, and we need to teach information that's relevant to the 21st century, and it's relevant to the jobs that are going to be out there that kids are going to fill when they graduate high school and college.
Thank you. Our next question looks at education and standardized testing. A survey conducted by the Commonwealth Educational Policy Institute said that 7 out of 10 Virginians believe that standardized testing hurts or does not improve students' performance. And 3 out of 4 people agree that preparing students for these SOLs does not allow teachers to cover all of the important material needed. There has been much talk about making changes to the SOLs or doing away with them completely, but efforts to lower the amount of standardized testing have largely failed in Richmond. Do you feel that standardized tests are good for our students and education system? And what is the best way for the state to gauge students' performance? We'll start with Mr. McPike.
Thank you. The SOL system is broken. It doesn't work for parents, it doesn't work for teachers, and it certainly doesn't work for students. In fact, my 10-year-old daughter, who's here tonight, last Wednesday was preparing for a first SOL this year, and frankly was filled with a tremendous amount of anxiety that she couldn't sleep. It's fundamental that we allow our teachers to teach and not just teach to a test. This is critical that we get this right and continue the path forward to make sure our students and teachers have the resources they need to succeed. That includes expansion of pre-K education and the Virginia Preschool Initiative. Frankly, we leave millions of dollars on the table. This is where we need to be innovative to get students the access to the tools they need to succeed working with parents. It's fundamental we do this dollar for dollar, some of the best investments we can make to ensure that kids can learn early and build the fundamentals to succeed through public education as well, all the way through higher education. And that's key to make sure we have the best and brightest to compete in our local economy, but also globally. Thank you.
Mr. Carney?
I know a thing or two about SOLs. I'm a mathematics teacher. I teach 7th and 8th grade mathematics. I've been teaching for 6 years in Woodbridge. And I have 2 boys who are in the Prince William County Public School systems. Zane, say hi. He has a SOL tomorrow morning. Zane is a phenomenal student. But he's still nervous about his language arts SOL, which he passes every year. And literally, I have kids in tears every year when SOLs come around. And no matter how much you tell them as a teacher, you try to make kids feel better that, hey, it's okay. It's just an exam and so forth. There's a lot of anxiety, and that's unacceptable. I was on a committee that was part of identifying non-essential SOLs, and this past year we did get rid of 5 SOLs to limit it down to just 12 that we need to take. I'm not against standardized testing, but we also have to look at how we assess our kids. The bottom line is kids learn very differently. Some kids are good at multiple choice types of testing, some kids are not. You cannot gauge and understand every kid's aptitude by doing a standardized test, so it's not for everyone. But having said that, we need to continue to look at our SOLs and improve them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell.
Here's the thing. As a former teacher and being in the classroom, we see the impact of this. That's why I was glad to help champion a bill that helped reduce some of our SOLs. For me, it doesn't matter what issue you come up with, it all traces back to education. It was a privilege to be endorsed by former National Education Association President Mary Futrell, no relation, by the way. But when we had the opportunity to talk about the things that are plaguing our system here at education, whether it's the high classroom sizes, abysmal teacher pay, or the over-testing, to the point that teachers have to teach to a test instead of focusing on the ability to be able to help kids think critically, she understood. And she said, well, what do you want to do about it? And I said, well, that's why I tried to create regional innovation business councils that would have brought together your community leaders, your teachers, your business leaders, and says, okay, what are the jobs and the skills of the future? So therefore, that is what we can start focusing on. So that way, we can start planning for the future instead of being more reactive. That's why we created a bill that had the opportunity to bring millions back into the Commonwealth. So therefore, with all of these ideas that we have, the one question that has to be asked every time is, how are we going to pay for that? And that's what I strived to accomplish.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Mr. McPike.
This past week I was speaking to a teacher at Fredlin Middle School, the only Title I middle school in Prince William. In fact, the middle school that I attended growing up. And this past weekend she actually came in and wrote a lesson plan in Spanish to make sure her kids had the access to the lesson plan and critical learning skills. Not for pay, but her own time. We've got to fundamentally sort of change this dynamic from our SOLs to allow our teachers to teach, but also give them the resources to succeed. That's the other part of this equation, is our state funding formulas don't account for all the true costs. This is something that in local government I've been doing in budgeting and can provide real results in innovation to make a difference.
Thank you, Mr. Carney.
Jeremy mentioned going to Fredlin. I actually used to teach at Fredlin. And Bevel, where I teach, is very similar makeup. And there's a lot to be done. But the bottom line is that Republicans are, in the General Assembly, are attacking public education. And we need a teacher. Who better than a teacher in the state Senate? We're talking a lot about education here, but who better than a teacher, and not only a teacher, but a parent of kids who attend Prince William County schools, to send to the state Senate who can fight for good public education.
Thank you. Mr. Futrell.
Well, as a former teacher and a young man who raised his younger brother who graduated, I agree. But here's the thing. Everyone came up here and we pretty much said the same thing, that we understand what are the issues that are in front of us. But again, it goes back to the question that I asked, which is how do people plan on paying for this? I put in bills that would have given us the opportunity to see those successes that we want. We want smaller classroom sizes. We want higher teacher pay. We want our kids to have the ability to be able to compete globally. But how are we going to pay for it? I have a plan that we've put in place, and I look forward that if you elect me as your next state senator, we will be able to execute and we will be able to see those successes.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell. This next question is about ethics. After the sentencing of former Governor Bob McDonnell for accepting large gifts, state lawmakers created an ethics reform package, according to the Daily Progress, that has an aggregate $100 annual cap on gifts. This package passed in the House and Senate with unanimous votes. As someone that would be working in the legislature that has passed these ethics reforms, do you think these reforms go far enough? And we're going to start with Mr. Futrell.
I wholeheartedly support ethics reform, period. You know, I hate that this is even an issue that we have to even come up here and discuss, but we understand why. You know, we had a governor that made some bad decisions, and because of that is now going to see prison time. I was glad to have a part and a say while we were sitting there trying to create that ethics bill. But I look forward to the day when we can move beyond this and our elected officials can focus on sound public policy and not about what trips or what gifts that they could receive. So I was happy to be able to have a voice and an impact in this process.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell. Mr. McPike.
Over the last 15 years of my public service, I've operated under absolute prohibition of gifts. Now, this is a standard that we need to hold our elected leaders to the same standard, frankly. And many of you here are used to that and working in local and state and federal government. But frankly, what happened was, while they made some progress in terms of a gift cap of $100, frankly, it didn't go far enough. It did not address an independent ethics commission that actually has teeth, that can dig in and sanction elected leaders that violate basic laws. We can do better. While they also passed the bill, it also opened up additional loopholes. When they used to have to report conferences and trips to things like ALEC and other right-wing conferences, now they no longer have to report those. So it's a process that opens some, closes some, but frankly, they just haven't gone far enough.
Thank you, Mr. McPike. Mr. Carney.
Right now in Richmond, politicians are discussing on setting limits from gifts to gifts from lobbyists. I support a complete ban whatsoever on any kind of gifts to elected officials from special interest groups and lobbyists. I might be a school teacher, but I can afford to buy my own coffee, and I love coffee. But again, I want to say that I support a complete ban on any kind of gifts whatsoever from any lobbyists or any special interest groups.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. We're going to open it up with the 1-minute rebuttal, starting with you, Mr. Futrell.
I completely agree with Jeremy here. It didn't go far enough. But here's the thing that you have to understand with being in the legislature. Like when you're down there, what you realize is there are 100 delegates, there are 40 senators, and collectively we have to come together and we have to say we agree on one bill. So what that means is there's a lot of positioning back and forth. This is probably not going to be the end of the bill. I look forward to when we can go back and we can push this thing even further. But what you have to understand are there are multiple people that have multiple approaches, and we're trying to figure out what collectively that answer should look like.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell. Mr. McPike, your rebuttal.
No, ethics is something that we spent a lot of time on. In fact, in 2012, I'm a graduate of the Sorensen's Leadership Institute at UVA. And it reinforced the values that I've learned as a public servant over the last 15 years, working in local government and as a firefighter. And continued commitment to zero gifts. It just doesn't make sense anymore. And frankly, we've got to strengthen the review process to something meaningful to restore our public trust in our elected officials.
Thank you, Mr. McPike. And Mr. Carney.
Again, I just want to emphasize that I support a complete ban on any kind of gifts from anyone to elected officials. Why have that temptation on the table at all? So there should be no gifts whatsoever. And this is something that Republicans and Democrats should not debate on. This is a matter of principle and ethics. There should be no gifts whatsoever to any elected officials from anyone.
The next question concerns military spending, and it goes first to Mr. Carney. According to the National Priorities Project, Virginia has the highest concentration of military employees in the country. $33 billion has gone to government contractors within the Old Dominion, and $45 billion in the previous year. Stafford has been able to attract a good deal more military industry jobs than Prince William has, even though Prince William has a greater population and is closer to Washington, D.C. What are your ideas to increase the share of military contracting jobs that end up in Prince William County?
Thank you for your question. Having served in the United States Marines for 8 years, I'm very grateful for for my service, but also grateful to my country for providing me good compensation for serving my country and performing my duty. We need to diversify our economy. We can't just rely on the federal government or the Department of Defense. I know that they employ a lot of folks. My wife actually works for the Department of Energy, and I'm thankful for that. But one of the things that we need to do is we need to really attract more private sector jobs, like technology firms, to locate in Prince William County. Governor McAuliffe and First Lady Michelle Obama were here a couple of weeks ago at George Mason University, where they renamed the campus, the School of Science and Technology. And I think that's a step in the right direction, and we need to continue that. So, again, going back to education, if we have more kids coming out of school who are highly trained in science and math fields, then we can attract more technology firms down here and diversify our economy, and it's good for the business climate as well. Thank you.
Coming from a military family, this is something that's always been big to me when we start talking about the military. And when we ran in 13 and you knocked doors and you realized that every other door that you knocked on was a military or veteran family, you realize how impactful it is to this overall community that we have here, which is why we led off with our Veteran and Military Family Bill of Rights, to be able to do things, because what I consistently heard was, we don't feel Virginia appreciates us. That was the thing. And so what we wanted to do is to make sure that we put our military personnel in the best position possible to be able to help our overall economy grow. Because these same skills and thought process that they've learned in our United States military, they can utilize in our system and help build our economy. And we start talking about the funding and defense funding and contracting, and we saw how big and how impactful that was when we started talking sequestration. That's where relationships come into play. That's why I was so grateful to be mentored by Congressman Sanford Bishops, who's the head of military spending at the federal level.
First, I want to take an opportunity to thank all our men and women who have served in the armed forces. Thank you. Our area has some tremendous assets with Quantico and other regional connections here to the military. Shout out to VFW Post 1503, which is the second largest VFW post in the United States. What that also entails is that workforce. And we've got to continue to drive to make sure we keep an eye on how we can grow our military assets and spending here as well. And frankly, many of you know, coming up in October, we have another round of sequestration. And with Republican obstructionists, this is endangering our local economy until this changes. This is something we've got to focus and dig into. And over the last year, I've worked with the Northern Virginia Regional Commission on figuring out our partnerships with our key military bases, on how we can leverage our services together whether it's contract services or other things to leverage what the same things are performed on bases, our local government and state governments. And we need to leverage our services to begin to strengthen our partnerships and, frankly, get the focusing on diversifying our economy and leveraging things like cyber defense right here in Quantico, which are critical to our new economy. Thank you.
1 minute rebuttals.
When I was deployed to Iraq, it was during my prime years, like a lot of my military buddies and everything. And generally, because you're deployed overseas or you serve in the military during your prime years, while you can be going to college. One of the things we also need to focus on is, as our veterans are exiting the military, that we ease that process and we focus on higher education. And we also look at what they're experts in to try to fill in some of the jobs that exist already right here. So I don't think we do enough. I'm telling you as a veteran, that's, veterans do feel like, we've served our country and more needs to be done. And I know as a Commonwealth, we can do a better job. Thank you.
Well, this really comes down to sound public policy and the things that we can put together. That is why I was happy to create the Veterans Resource Fairs that we've done throughout this county on multiple occasions at this point, to bring in business leaders to help our military veterans who are transitioning from the military, small business administration, to help them prepare to start their own businesses. They can do claims, mental health screenings. We wanted to give our veterans the opportunity to see that we truly care. We don't need to be veteran friendly. We need to treat our veterans as if they are family, and there is a difference.
One of the most direct opportunities we have to expand military spending right here is the planned VA care facility. It's right now is originally planned for 240 beds. It'll open up with 120. These are direct military spending dollars that are planned that were cut back in the last session. As your state senator, I'll find ways to make sure that veterans have a resource right here in our community, and these dollars are reinvested right here in Prince William and Manassas area.
Thank you. Our final question of the evening will be about redistricting. More than half a dozen bills died in this General Assembly session this year that would have made the redistricting process more fair by curbing or eliminating the gerrymandering of state legislative and congressional districts. Where exactly do you stand on redistricting reform, and why do you consider this an important issue? We'll start with Mr. McPike.
Thank you. This is one of the issues that I think is fundamental to restoring trust in our process. If you look across our Commonwealth, we have 5 statewide elected Democrats. Yet in our House of Delegates, we have only 1 out of 3 seats. I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the process. This is something that we need to establish so, frankly, politicians can't pick voters before voters pick them. And that's why I was chair of the Northern Virginia chair of One Virginia 2021, which is the group advocating for the constitutional change necessary to put power back and put open transparency in terms of how we draw our districts. I think this is one of the fundamental things we do. In fact, as your state senator, I will have succeeded if one day I'm redistricted out of my seat.
Thank you, Mr. Carney.
I support an independent commission take up redistricting. Politicians should not have say on how and when redistricting is done. I know the incumbents fight hard to keep their seats, and we should, again, we need to take that temptation away. A complete ban on gifts, we need to take that temptation away, and that away from the politicians. We need to have an independent commission in place that looks at redistricting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Futrell.
I'll tell you, sitting on the Privileges and Elections Committee as a Democrat is a very lonely place. We come in, and what they do is they host our meetings at 7:30 in the morning. So all those bills he just mentioned that die, they happen at 7:30. So if you want to be there to argue for it, you've got to get to Richmond by 7 o'clock. And that's how they set this up. I've sat there on days where we've had 30 people that have stood up and testified as to why we need nonpartisan redistricting, which I completely support. And to watch them vote it down 4-2 every single time. And the only satisfaction that I can even take from that is when I get a Twitter alert from like Virginia 2021 that says, thank you for Delegate Futrell for being the only voice that was willing to stand up for us today. But it's going to take more than that. What happens is they can do things like that because they don't believe that we are serious enough to come out and vote them out of office. You know, we need to collectively come together and make sure that our voices are heard. Elections have consequences, and it's time for them to pay for that.
Thank you. Rebuttal, Mr. McPike.
Well, it's clear that we need change, and we need change before the next census. It's critical we do that, and it's the next 2 years that are going to be critical. And this campaign and this priority is about selecting a person who can provide innovation and results, and that's what I'll be doing.
Thank you, Mr. Carney.
And redistricting is also critical. I want to also emphasize that this is why this particular state Senate seat is so critical, because we're down, the Democrats are 21-19. So this particular seat is an open seat, is being targeted by both Republicans and Democrats. So important things that we're talking about here, redistricting, funding for education, and putting bans on gifts, they're all going to be decided in the next session, and it's very, very critical that, you know, I know you guys are all going to come out and vote, but you encourage your friends and family to vote as well in this primary.
Thank you. Mr. Futrell.
Well, and absolutely, that is why this election is so important. We see the things that are at stake. As I said in my opening statements, you know, our future depends on this. So when we come up here and we're talking about what our vision is and what our solutions are, that's really what this is about. You know, this is about putting people in position so therefore we can see the successes that we're looking for. And when we start talking about redistricting and we start talking about the impact of it, that is why 400,000 Virginians currently do not have health care, because people are more worried about their primaries than they are the general elections. It's time for us to make our voice heard.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell. Gentlemen, this concludes our round of questioning. Now it is time for closing remarks. Mr. Carney was the first to make an opening statement, so he will be the first to make his closing remarks. Mr. Carney.
I want to thank Potomac Local and the panelists and everybody for here, and especially my wife Fatima and my sons Zain and Saber and all our friends who came out and supporting us. As a teacher, I will tell you that the #1 goal for a teacher is to make sure that their students meet their full potential. And that is going to be my goal if I'm fortunate enough to be your state senator, is that our district meets its full potential. We have to stop settling for less. We need to focus on diversifying our economy by focusing on education first. We need to focus on math and sciences. We need to reform our SOLs. And when we do so, we will be able to bring in students out of school that are highly trained to fill in technology jobs, and we can attract more technology firms to our region. In addition to that, we need to fight to improve our infrastructure, which is very broken. We need to focus on mass transit and rail. We need to encourage more teleworking. Folks are spending way too much time away from their families. As your state senator, I will fight to make that one of my top priorities, that you're spending more time at home with your families and less time fighting traffic. And lastly, we need to focus on our small business owners. There are a lot of family-owned businesses in our region, and we need to help them, we need to support them, and we need to do that by making sure that we have people that are coming out of school so that they can fill those jobs at those small businesses. This is a very important election. I am the only candidate that has the ability to go toe-to-toe with the Republican nominee because of my great record, my teaching career, and my honorable service in the Marines. And I hope to get your vote on June 9th. And not only that, I hope to get your vote on November 3rd. And as your state senator, I will promise you that I'll work hard every single day to put your interests first in Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Mr. Futrell.
Well, first off, thank you, Potomac Local, once again, for putting this on. We can give them a round of applause. I truly appreciate it. Well, here's where we are. Understand that the winner of this election is going to have to match up against a very well-funded, very popular Republican elected official. And for us to be successful, we need someone who has proven that they can win. We need to make sure that we have the ability to draw out people who normally don't participate in elections like this. This is what I want to do. I come out here because I want to be solution-oriented, understanding that my job is not to know all of the answers, but rather to create an environment where we can collectively come together to discover the answers. I will continue to fight for things like the state infrastructure fund that I tried to create that has the opportunity to bring the metro down to Woodbridge when people says that we can't afford it. I will continue to be a voice and a fight for our veteran and military families who are willing to give their lives for us. I will continue to fight to make sure that they feel like they are family, that they feel they are appreciated. And I'll continue to fight for our teachers. I'll continue to fight for our classrooms. I'll continue to fight to make sure that our children have the ability to compete globally, because that is how we're going to move forward. If I can only get as far, we can only help them get as far as we are, we have failed them. We have to push our children 10 steps further than we ever dreamed about going. That is the job that we have. I need your help. Winning a 50-50 district against an incumbent who the speaker drew the line 30 feet around his house for, it creates a very lonely environment when you're in the House of Delegates. That much I can guarantee you. But I'm up to the challenge. I'm up to the challenge because people like you helped support us and helped us get across that line, not because you wanted to vote for me, but because you wanted to vote for the ideas and the things that we collectively came together to do. We have a chance to move Virginia forward, but it can only be done if collectively we continue to work together. I hope I have your support. I hope I've done you proud by serving you in the Virginia House of Delegates, and I thank you for this opportunity to give you my vision and my solutions.
Thank you, Mr. Futrell. And Mr. McPike, your closing statement.
Thank you. We just heard lots about the competitiveness of political races, and in fact, in 2013, I was able to garner 3,000 more votes than the other folks here on the stage and bring out 2.5% more voters. And that's what we need to win, is engaging folks to come out to the table. And why is it important? Because it's about investing in education and making sure that we reform our SOLs, that we make sure we get the right funding to the table, that we make sure we continue to, frankly, ensure that Virginia does not balance its books on the backs of our schools, which they continue to do. And frankly, we need to continue the fight to make sure our transportation dollars work for us to prioritize Route 28, Route 1, extending Metro and VRE. And finally, on Medicaid. You know, as an EMT over the last 16 years, I've treated many folks who don't have access to health care. And my wife is a 5-year breast cancer survivor. We were lucky enough to have insurance. It came through okay, but it even was expensive with that. This is something that's fundamental to this district. It impacts over 400,000 Virginians and tens of thousands of folks right here in our area. As your state senator, you can believe that I will be at the table to make sure we figure out the ways to deliver results and innovation to get this done. It's critical we come together as Democrats, and I ask for your vote coming up on June 9th and join my campaign as we begin to build a message and frankly a voice, and it's a voice in your voice that needs to be heard in Richmond. And as your state senator, I will work side by side with you to make sure our priorities are taken care of. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. McPike. This concludes our debate. Thank you all for coming. Don't forget to vote in the Democratic primary for the 29th Senate District on June 9th. Thank you.